D21 Nissan D21. What's going on, guys? Been a while since I did a video, but this video is in regards to the big four: electrical upgrade, your grounds, your power, and I guess caps on anything you delete, etc. This is for a YouTube viewer and to help all you other guys out who want to make your Nissan, your beloved hardbody D21 Nissan, more reliable and not have issues, everyday problems, etc. More reliable and not have to open the hood as much, like me. All right, so here we go. I've deleted a lot of shit. As you can see, every time I deleted something, guys, if you have a loose wire, a plug, and you're never going to use it, you can cut those leads and use some liquid electrical tape and cover it. Okay, you don't have to leave all those leads out if you're never going to use them again. Like if you're going to do a carburetor upgrade and delete all the sensors and wires that you would need to delete, like all the fuel injector sensors, they all went right there in the intake manifold. That's a sexy ass intake manifold. Doesn't look like an older Nissan manifold. This is like looking at the top of a motor of a Honda or Mitsubishi or a Lancer or an Evo or a 16 valve motor. Even though it's a 12 valve motor, fuel injection motors have their own intake plenums. It gives them more high flow induction, instantaneous throttle response. That's why they work so well with EFI and carburation. But you know, the limits are the factory electronic carburetor, because it's only one throttle body, right? But then it has all these four intake tubes. Well, that's great, but the limiting factor is how much fuel flow and air, your CFM rate, you're going to get through that throttle body. Okay, guys, this is for naturally aspirated. This isn't for turbo. You guys who on the turbo thing, you know that you're going to shit out a lot more money and you're going to cause issues and you're going to have a lot more rebuilds and parts to replace. That's fine. But for the guy who wants to just have a reliable, everyday, nice running little Nissan ride that's reliable, starts up on the first fucking start, warms up quick, gets you good gas mileage, a lot of torque, you can still use it like a truck for everyday work and play, this is the channel for you. Okay, what I did for the battery, somebody's asking me what did I do. Well, this is the battery cable that had all those, like those two little boxes, they call them fusible links. Guys, there's no fucking fuses in there. And what happened on my truck, what happened was that the wires were starting to get corroded. You can unplug the clips, and unplugging one of them, the truck will turn off while it's running, because that one goes to the computer. Okay, and the other one is for charging. It completes the circuit for the alternator to go through the fuse box, to go through the circuit that goes to the fuse panel inside the truck. And it has its own relay inside, its own fusible link in there. There is no relay for the charging system. The only thing that governs how much voltage is spit out by your alternator is your rectifier, your regulator on the back side of your alternator. This is the original Hitachi alternator. It's almost 30 years old, still works great. I had put a TYC, brand new remanufactured in one, just to put this one aside. And within a year, it crapped out, and it didn't even give me any telltale signs. And I have voltage gauges on the inside to tell me when I'm charging and when I'm not. The good thing is that when the alternator went out, this big bastard battery was still running the motor just off the battery. The reason why you want to keep the computer after you do a carburetor upgrade is because these motors have a crank sensor on them. Tells the computer where the timing is. Yes, it's mechanically timed, but it tells the computer when to kick off the spark. Even though the distributor's dialed into the timing chain and the cam gear, etc., and you have your rotor, etc., well, it tells that coil when to start sparking. You see what I'm saying? So you gotta have that. You gotta leave that ECM in there. Do all my lights come on when I turn on my key? No. I've deleted so much shit. I didn't put any delete caps. I didn't close the circuits. I just got rid of the wires. All those wires that came to this big old brain, I used liquid electrical tape, capped them all off, and just covered them and made it a little bit nicer, a little bit neater. These plugs over here are factory. You need those, okay? But the one that I modified was the one that it says a fusible link, and that's where you're going to get issues. It has a funky looking wire. It looks like it's part of the terminal. Just cut that bastard off. Put your own terminal on there. Give it better power. Make sure that it's never going to corrode and break a connection, because when that happens, you're going to have issues and you're not going to know why, unless you know how to diagnose electrical shorts, negative ground shorts, how an alternator works, etc. So if you're going to delete a lot of stuff, delete it. If you haven't deleted it yet, then don't put caps on this and that. If you take off a vacuum line and it's sucking air, cap it, because if you have a vacuum leak, it will cause erratic idling, okay? And guys, also remember, you see that big plug right here? That used to be the thermostat temperature switch. This is the temperature, the thermostat temperature gauge. It only has one wire sticking out of it, okay? When it's grounded to the block, it's grounded. The wire is for the charge, so it reads resistance. This is for the thermostat temperature sensor. It has 3 wires or 2 wires. That's a different plug. So you cut those wires when you get rid of the fuel injection, because if that's messed up and it doesn't sit on there nice and neat and make a good connection, if you move it around, you take it off, you'll notice your motor will slightly idle up and down, because it affects the computer's ratios. Remember, you have AFR ratios, you have temperature sensor, everything that fuel injection needs to work. You have IHC, idle air control valve, that controls the idle up whenever you turn on your AC. You have TPS sensor, and you have a what's the other one that sticks out on the side? The MAF sensor. Okay, and then you have a temperature sensor. You need those sensors, plus you need that thermostat temperature sensor here. So any one of those that starts fucking up on you, yes, your motors are going to start running messed up. If your spark plugs are old and you don't change your spark plugs, if you have bad spark plug wires, you're going to get poor performance. You're going to get you're going to lose MPGs, you're going to lose power, etc. All these things are connected. Guys, I don't have to open up my hood. That's why it's dirty now. I need to wash it, because I just don't have to fuck with it. Ever since I did the carburetor upgrade, the 3838 Weber, it's fucking flawless, man. I mean, the only thing I gotta do is take off the air cleaner and clean it. But, oh, and you wonder why I don't have the clips, is because I siliconed the air cleaner to the lid, but I just put 4 little dots of silicone on the bottom so I can rip it off and submerge that in hot soapy water. It breaks down all the dirt and whatever, and then dry it off, put it back on, and 4 little dots of silicone cleans up and takes away those clips, because those clips are pretty tight and it starts to smash the filter. You can get a K&N filter for these too. Not really going to notice a big difference. Remember, you always have a breather filter. So I hope I'm helping you answer questions for like how I did the battery connection, why the Big 4 is essential, what the alternator does. It just regulates the charging voltage. You know, it doesn't overcharge the battery. It usually spits out anywhere from 14.1 to 14.4, sometimes 14.5, 6, 7, 8, depending on the temperature of the alternator. You got to remember, temperature affects the flow of amperage, not volts, amperage. That's why you, if you live in a state like I do where it's real hot, they always talk about heat advisory issues whenever the power lines get too hot, because amperage, high flow of amps, causes heat. Like amps, you know, in stereo systems, when you run a stereo system and you have an amplifier that's either a class D or a class AB, right? One is high voltage, one is not high voltage. A class D is more stable. That's why I run a class D amp, a 5-channel. I run a 5-channel SCAR class D amplifier, and I don't have a capacitor. All I have is a giant 150 amp fuse holder with all 0 gauge, 100% copper. Remember, it's 100% copper, and don't use copper clad. So these are all my grounds. I've got my alternator. I got the bracket grounded. I've got the side of the head grounded. I've got the back wall grounded. I've got the frame grounded, and it goes to the battery. So where does an alternator dump all its extra voltage and heat and or amperage. Once the regulator needs to get rid of all this excess heat, it dumps it into the ground. So does really improving the size of your power cables matter? Not really. It only depends on how you're going to use or consume power, but it's really the ground. These alternators are Japanese. They run off a negative ground system. It's not like American, Ford, and Chevy. That's why, like in 4Runners and anything that can be submerged underwater with a snorkel sticking up on the side and it still runs, because they run off negative ground. They're not a positive type of alternator. So it bleeds off all this extra voltage into the grounding system. That's why grounds have to be everywhere on these vehicles. As far as that goes, so in doing like a big 3 or big 4, I believe is very critical. If you're into audio, it's going to help your audio. If you wanted to just help the charging system of an aging vehicle's electrical wiring system perform better like a newer vehicle, then do it. You don't have to do it because I tell you. Just do it because it's going to keep your vehicle running into the next millennium. Guys, these trucks aren't getting newer. They're getting older. And I have all LED lights on here, guys. I've converted everything to LED because LED doesn't really present an amp load like 0.03, where light bulbs are phosphorus burning LEDs, not LEDs, bulbs, and they usually pull like 0.9 to 1 amps. So further really hurting the factory system. Okay, I put some LED bars in the grills on both sides, right? Got the homemade headlight covers out of smoked curved license plate covers. I can run as many LED strips on here as I want, and it's not going to hurt my charging system because I have all the extra grounds, and of course I upgraded my power. You might as well do both at the same time. So we have big grounds, you know, we have a nice fat 0 gauge all copper lug crimping the charging and power wires that go to the fuse box and the alternator circuit, the charging circuit. We have the stereo wires going inside. I've deleted all the MAF, the TPS, the IHC, all the sensors for the injectors, etc. So this vehicle is no longer having to power a certain amount of sensors, etc. What it is doing is, the only thing it's reading is the crank sensor, and it's just a sensor. It's located on this side towards the back. Okay, it's just a spot on the flywheel where it tells it where it's at when it's rotating. Okay, I haven't had to advance this distributor because on older vehicles that have a carburetor, they don't have that type of ignition system. They have a different type of ignition, 12-volt ignition system, and it has a vacuum line that runs off, and it needs to have constant vacuum because it has like a rotating wheel in there. It picks up the degree of the little magnetic 4 parts for each cylinder, and as it rotates, it advances. So when you increase acceleration, you need to advance your ignition system to get that more consistent power, instantaneous bang, so you can combust the air and fuel as it goes into the chambers to make more power. So you don't really need to advance your ignition system only unless you're increasing throttle. Okay, like turbo guys, and that's with turbo, naturally aspirated, or supercharged. Now, with all the testing I did on here, I didn't have to adjust my distributor forward or back. It's in the factory position. So the only thing I have is this factory wire, right? And that wire goes all the way over there, and you don't get rid of those. Those are ground wires. That has to be grounded, okay? The power wires that supply the power that come from the coil and right here, and they go up to the bottom of the distributor. So ground, power, okay? And that power wire runs through the computer circuit. So that's why I don't mess with the computer. I just leave it in there. It's not hurting me. I'm no longer having to power all these sensors. But if you delete any vacuum lines, etc., you need to cap them off if they are still sucking. If you delete, like if you still have a sensor and it's not being used no more, and it looks like it has a vacuum line on it and it's not sucking, don't worry about it. It's not going to suck anything in or control anything else anymore. Okay, it's a mechanical electronic device that works off vacuum. Therefore, when it puts vacuum on it, it actually mechanically pulls up on the little electronic solenoid inside, opening or closing the circuit. And that's how you get something to have a reaction, like the EGR system, the canister, etc., all that. Okay, so now that I've talked about deletes, the power and ground system, the way the alternator works, it powers and bleeds off all that extra voltage and amperage is through the grounding system. You know that. I'm thinking of putting a manual fan back on here. The only thing I don't like is that I live in a hot state, so the temperature will pick it up and it'll engage that fan more, taking away power from the motor. That's why I like running a 16-inch fan in the stock fan shroud, because it works. It just it will affect the AC. It won't pull as much air through that little AC condenser radiator. So it'll work best when it's on the highway, not sitting in traffic, you know, while you're just drinking your cold beverage and eating your burger, fingering your girlfriend, and it's gonna keep continuously blowing cold. You know, it's not going to, because it's not going to suck enough air through unless you have the mechanical fan, the fan clutch, because then it engages and it sucks more CFM through, unless you're on the highway. So I just wanted to mention that to you. But I'm a bachelor. Most of the time I roll my windows down because I have a high performance audio sound system. I'm an audio guy, been a guru for fucking years now. I worked at audio shops, done my own shit, help people out. I do home theater as well. I can talk the talk. Just like a computer person can talk the talk, well, I'm an audio guy who can talk the talk, and I'm a mechanical guy who can talk the talk and walk the walk. So it's a language that I understand and hope that I can, you know, bring across forth to you guys. So when I did the carburetor system, since this is a fuel injected vehicle, if you look at my videos, this is in, this comes in just like it did the factory, and then you have a return. It goes back to the fuel tank, because it goes like this. It goes like this into the fuel barrel and back out. It gives it the pressure it needs, and what it doesn't need, it just sends right back to the fuel tank. Well, on these carburetors, you have an in, motherfucking out. Most of the time, the out is blocked with a little plug. Take it off and put a nipple on there. It's that fucking simple. It's not rocket science. Saves you from buying a $200 or $300 regulator that's going to leak and cause a fire under the hood. And this therefore lets you use the factory fuel pump. And it doesn't get any easier than that. I mean, it does not get any fucking easier than that, guys. This is a standard vehicle. I like standards. I keep them that way. Oh, by the way, guys, I took the blinkers out of the sequential in my bumper, and I drilled a hole, and I added some yellow LEDs, and I put them on the side. So I'm going to turn on the hazards so you can see how this shit works. Because think about it, newer vehicles, they have the blinker and the parking light, right? So when you look at it from the front, it's from the front. You look at it from the side, it's from the side. But yet when I have the parking lights on, I have the white LEDs to match the LED strip parking lights. So, and what that does is, in case you bang your bumper, or you crash your front bumper, or you destroy it, you no longer have the wires hanging down there. Now, I just attached a positive and negative to the parking circuit from each side to power that, and that's what powers my little blue LEDs. I'm thinking of running a whole shitload more behind the grill and the bumper, because it looks fucking cool. But anyway, that's what I did. I don't run resistors. The resistors to slow it down. You saw how fast they blink. It blinks like that in the front and rear. To me, what that does is it gets the attention of the people in front of you or behind you. It lets them know, hey, look, I'm going to fucking turn. But they're not blinking super fast like if one side is out. So it's like right in between fast and standard, the standard blink, which I like. So don't think that you have to go spend more money out for flash resistors. Some vehicles have a different electrical system and may just blink really super fast, where it blinks so fast it just looks like it's one light, you know? You don't want that. All right, I'm going to upload this. I hope this helps out on anything you're deleting, what the wires I did, how I organize them, what the alternator does, the battery does, you know, how I set up the intake and return for the the aftermarket 3838 high flow Weber carburetor, which I fucking love, romps like a motherfucker. I need to downsize the main jets though, because I am actually sucking all the fuel out of the float bowl. And say like if I keep in a lower gear for an extended period of time, if I don't shift, it can't fill up the float bowl fast enough. So it's actually really flowing that much air and fuel. I don't blow black smoke. I don't blacken my spark plugs, and I haven't had to advance my distributor or add an aftermarket coil. So that should tell you how fucking good it operates. And the gas mileage is there, and the torque and the power gains. So what I could do is I could just take this off and just go down 1 or 2 sizes on the actual main jets. They sit in the float bowl, and that'll control how much fuel flow goes to the emulsion tubes, etc. I don't have to change anything else. This will actually further increase economy. So increasing or gaining more fuel flow first starts off with the first rule on doing carburetors is your main jets. After that, if you need to tune it more, depending on how you drive it on a track or on the street, you may have to mess with your air jets or your emulsion tubes. The only time you want to mess with the actual throttle jets, which is one on each side, is if the capacity of the motor is too big or too small. So if you put a bigger carburetor on a small cc motor, like a 2000 or 1700 or 1900, you may have to go a size down or two on your idle jets. There you go, the idle jets. Remember, the idle jets work off a complete different circuit. It's only when the vehicle is idling, okay? Not when it's running. The run circuits are the main jets, they are the emulsion tubes, and they are the air injectors, the air correctors. That's how you really start tuning for power. Like once you've got it, depending on how you're going to use your motor, if you're going to be like on a circle track, if you're going to be racing at the drag strip and you just full throttle all the time, and then by that time you might actually run an MSD coil that you can actually electronically advance your spark to handle all that extra smog of air and fuel. But as far as throwing it on here on a 2.4 liter, works fucking fantastic fine. I need to go down on my my main jets, but like I said, it's romp heaven. So I'm gonna upload this. Hope this helps you out, guys. Any questions, just put them down there. Peace.